Hello everyone, how are you doing? So let me know really quickly if you can hear me. Everything sounds good, looks good here in the comments. We have Just ED said hello, hello. Sunshine is here, hello from Oregon. Ray, you're here, welcome. One bright light, wonderful. Everything's sounding good. Joshua, glad you're here. Uh, awesome. I'm looking down at my iPad here for the live chat here. Wonderful. Well, I am glad you all are here. We're going to talk about if you should overbid on a home, okay? And, we're coming from a time of a little bit of some unrest going on in the country. So if you need a moment to take a break and slow down, if this is going to add to some of the stress that you might already have, some of the feelings of being overwhelmed and frustrated, then maybe come back and watch this video just a little bit later when you feel a little bit more relaxed and at ease. Don't keep piling on stress in your life. If you feel like your stress level's here, we don't need to do things to keep adding on top. Okay, so find some space if you need it. Help regulate your nervous system a little bit, and then this replay is going to be available so you can come back when you're in a more calm place. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through a calculator that's going to help you understand a little bit about how to process if you should overbid for a home, because we're in a really competitive seller's market, meaning that sellers have control, prices are increased, and a lot of homes are seeing multiple offers come in. So sometimes you might have to be overbidding, right? And that's kind of subjective, but bidding more than you might expect than the offer price, right? A home might be listed for $300,000, but to get the home, you might have to offer $310,000. So we're going to talk about if that's actually a good decision or not. Actually, break down some of the math a little bit, and then I'll allow you to text in your city and state, or actually the address that you're looking at, and then I'll run those numbers here for you. Okay. So before we get into that, let's talk about, is it okay to buy? My friend Javier Vidania just put out a video today actually talking a little bit about this, and he brought up a good point where at almost any point in the housing market, it rarely is anyone ever going to say it's a good time to buy. There always seems to be something that's going on in the market that people have fear about. That's just a natural thing to happen with the market. So it's completely fine to purchase. If you feel like you're ready, now is a perfect time to buy. Okay, if you don't feel like you're ready, now is not a perfect time to buy. Right? We need to make our buying decision based off of these internal factors: how strong we are as a buyer, how confident we are, both in ourselves financially and emotionally and mentally, making these decisions moving forward. Okay, there's always going to be things going on externally around us that are going to convince us not to do the thing that we might want to do. Okay, so if you're in that spot where you're saying, I have good credit, I have money saved, I know my budget, I found a house that I like, and I think this is a good decision, it's an okay time to buy. Don't let other people try to talk you out of buying. Javier brought up a really good point of, like, you have a lot of realtors who are saying, here's this big housing crash happening in order to get views and get attention, but then they also want to go try to sell you a house. And you have these conflicting messages going on. And so that can really wear down your confidence as a buyer. So I want you to know that if you're ready to buy, it's perfectly fine and a good time to buy. Okay, there's not going to be this impending crash and you're going to make this terrible decision and everything's going to fall apart. It's just simply not that black and white. Okay, and at the same time, it's completely okay to be unsure with where you're at, right? You might be going into this process and hearing all of this junk going on and thinking, I don't know if now's a good time for me to buy or not. And if that's you, that's okay. You're allowed to take a moment. You're allowed to take a break. You're not going to miss out on anything. I promise. Okay, you're going to be fine. And sometimes what it takes is needing to take a little bit of a break from watching videos about the housing market, about just housing in general, taking a break from news and information. With the way social media is oriented now, is like what you end up watching, those algorithms are going to continue showing more and more of that because they want you to continue watching whatever you're interested in. They want you to stay on their platform for a long period of time. So they're going to continue pushing that info your way. Okay, so keep that in mind. You might need to take a break so that you're not just in this slog of, is that a word? Slog? what word am I looking for there? You're in this just cycle of constant fear-based type of information. Okay, so here is what we are going to do. What I want you to do is text, get my face the other way. Text #live to my phone number, and then what it's going to do, it's going to put you on the live notification list, but it'll also allow you to text in questions. And specifically for this this live, what we're going to do here is you can text in just like this format. So I want you to text me the address that you're looking at. That's going to allow me to look up some historical information that I need to take a look at to put in this calculator. Then I want you to tell me the list price of the home. So what are they listing the home for sale at? So in this example, it was $200,000. And then how much are you thinking of bidding over that? So maybe 123 Main Street was listed at $200,000. And you're considering offering $206,000. And we'll break down some examples here. Now, keep in mind, we're going to run through these examples on the internet. So if you're not comfortable sharing a prospective home that you're looking at putting an offer in, don't text that in, right? So if you'd like to, you can text it in to my number, and then I'm going to pull that up here. We're going to take a look at some examples, okay? And cool, Socrates, thanks so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. So let's start this off right. Well, I'm glad that you are here and you all are here. Let me go ahead and open up my phone real quick. Cool, and Efren, we got your info in here. Wonderful, thank you for sending that in. What I'm gonna do is, let's just kind of jump into this. I'm gonna try to put this in a place where I can actually see it. Okay, so I'm gonna hop on over here. You probably should be able to see my screen. Okay, we got 4712 Robin Ave, and that's in McAllen, Texas. And so what I'm going to do here is take a look at some of the historical data that I need to put in here. So I'm going to go over to this calculator. Now, unfortunately, this isn't a calculator that you have access to. It'd be really nice if I could give you access to this. I believe it's only available for lenders, but hopefully through this you'll be able to get a better idea of what some of this data looks like when we take a look at it. So I also need to, if you can also text in your county, that would be really helpful. Because I need to find what county we have in here. Let's just look this up on Google. Hidalgo. Hidalgo? Is that how we say it? There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look at some of the historic data that is inside of Zillow. Public tax, there we go, price history. So the first thing I want to look for is what's the amount that the seller paid for the home and when did they do this? So I can see pending sale, listed for sale, listing removed. Why is this not showing me the previous? This is very strange. Normally Zillow would show me this information, but it's not for some reason. So instead we're going to look up on the county auditor's website and see if we can find the deed history. So on 17 was the last exchange. Let's see if we have that in here. Interesting. I'm thinking what is happening is Zillow must have changed this because it used to say sold, and instead it looks like they just put listing removed. So we're going to go 148 in 2017. And this was in October. Okay, so you said the current asking price is $164,900, and you didn't specify the bid above asking, but we'll just run through an example here. Okay, let's estimate. Let's say they're asking $165 for this. So let's say if we wanted to bid $170, what would happen? So what it's showing us here in this county that I don't know how to pronounce. So we can see current asking price, bid above asking, so our total bid is $169,900. All right, 5-year forecasted appreciation is $25,000. All right, then what we can also see, the amount that seller paid for the home. So we enter this info, October 2017. And let's take a first look at these kind of shaded in purple charts here. So this is going from the last sale and just kind of averaging historical data. All right, so historical data helps us see a good trend. Is our future projection somewhat lining up? Is our future projection conservative or more aggressive? And we can see that our future projection is actually a little bit more conservative than what we've been seeing historically, okay? Especially if we were to bid over by $5,000. So what we can see here in this today section, this is what the current asking price is, right? Slightly above what it would have been in May. If we bid over, we can now trace this line. So we can see our home value should exceed the total bid due to appreciation January 2022. So based on current appreciation levels, we could overbid by $5,000 and meet that valuation in 2022. Okay. Now, obviously, it'd be nice to purchase it a lot, as low as possible. That gives us more discount. But we know that a $5,000 bid above the asking price isn't going to harm us too much. If we're going to be in the property for at least 1 year, we should be solid to move forward. Okay. And so kind of what this calculator is trying to do is help understand how appreciation plays into us bidding over ask, right? Obviously, we want to purchase for the lowest price possible. That gives us the most benefit, right? Of course, we want to save $5,000 when we can. But if we have to do it to get the home, because sometimes we do, especially in a seller's market that's competitive with multiple offers, we have to overbid to get what we want. It's nice to know that appreciation actually helps us out a little bit here. We don't feel like everything is going to crumble just because we overbid for a property. Now, obviously, the more we overbid, especially compared to the percentage of the home, the easier it is for us to get in kind of some, hot water, because then we have to be in the home a lot longer for that appreciation to catch up to the bid above ask. And David asked, that would assume it appraises for that listing price. That's correct. So it does assume that the home could appraise for the listing price. And that's something we have to be careful of when we bid over ask. Now, some people are willing to bring extra cash to the table. I don't know that I would recommend that. With appraisals, sometimes they can be accurate, sometimes they can be not too accurate. And so sometimes they can come down a little bit more to your educated decision on what you want to do. But the home would have to appraise, and if it doesn't appraise, then you'd have to bring the extra money or walk away from the deal. Both are okay options as long as you feel like you have some data to back up that decision a little bit. So does this all make sense? Let me know if this kind of makes sense or if it's a little bit confusing, if I need to clear up anything. Let's jump to another example here. Okay, so Lauren said 6372 Poqueta Road, Verona, Pennsylvania. Zach, you asked, how would this calculator work for newly built homes with no previous history? So it's just going to go off of forecasted appreciation, and I'll show you a little bit about how to forecast appreciation in your own area, even without this calculator. It's not going to be as easy as the calculator is, but I'll show you how to do that in just a sec. I'll cross off some of what we've done here. Cool. Let me see what county we are in. We're in, I don't know how to say any of these names. Okay. So you said it's listed for $135. let's go through here with some of the previous data. Yeah, there it is. It says sold. I don't know why the last one didn't say sold. Super strange. So 73,000 in 2020. Interesting. So this house was most likely a flip, right? To go from 73 up 84% to 135. And it looks like this house was a flip. You can tell by, you still have unpainted drywall. I wonder if they're selling it like that. But that's some gorgeous flooring. It looks like they did a nice job with the kitchen too. So this one's going to be a little bit interesting. Historic data is not going to tell us very much about what's going on. But let me double check what month this was. This was in June of 2020. Okay, current asking is 135 over by 5,000. Oh. I guess this doesn't really like the commas and number signs in there. Okay, 5-year forecasted appreciation for the county would put this at $30,000, $30,800 in total appreciation. Okay, again, we can see all the information we put in here again. This time, home value should exceed total bid due to appreciation in December 2021. Okay, so coming up on just a year to be able to gain that bid above ask back. Now, historical data doesn't really help us here and isn't super important primarily because it was a flip, right? So this home probably was in not so great shape before. If they purchased it for 73, they put some work into it and now it's going to be worth more. And I would have more confidence in being able to bid over this just a little bit, primarily because if you have investors who are in that market flipping homes, you might have a better assumption that there could be some growth in that neighborhood if that's happening. Now, obviously, we don't want to overpay still for homes. It's always nicer to get a discount. But we know that, even if we're going to bid $5,000 over, the way that appreciation is forecasted, we should be able to get close to make up that difference within a period of a year. Okay. Now let's kind of take an extreme example. Let's see, what if we did 10,000 over ask? So we can see we're not going to, the home value should exceed our total bid due to appreciation in October 2022. Okay, this pushes us out a little bit further. Okay, and this is the same thing. The more we overbid, especially relative to the cost of the home, the longer it's going to take for us to gain that appreciation back. And again, that's assuming we have forecasted appreciation going on. Okay, and we can see very quickly that our overbidding here it's probably gonna be difficult to appraise, because based on forecast appreciation, if next year is gonna be worth lower than what our total valuation is right now with the bid and asking over, then it might not appraise. So we might either have to walk away from the deal, the seller might have to come down on price, or we might have to bring extra money to the table to make that work. And a short appraisal is never is never fun. All right, let's do another one here. This is Saeed. She said 2 Garden Hills Court, Cranston, Rhode Island. Okay, 385. Oops. Let's see what county we're in. Oh, it's in what county is this in? Providence. Okay. All right, so the list is 385. And let's take a look at the historic data here. And some of this historic data is interesting just to take a look at, to see kind of what's been going on with the value of the home, especially if, the sold data is interesting, but Also, when we take a look at listing data, like how long ago was it listed for sale? Sometimes what will happen is it will be listed and then taken off and listed and taken off. Sometimes it'll be listed and then reduced and reduced and reduced and then taken off and listed. And that can tell us a little bit more about kind of the motivation of a seller. We can start to get some ideas of maybe this home has not been selling the way they expect, and maybe that could change our negotiation position that we have. Because somebody did ask, yeah, James said, you said, I've seen Zillow say listing removed, the seller backed out or rented outside of Zillow. So yeah, it's possible that they went outside of Zillow. More likely what happened, because Zillow actually pulls in third-party data, so it's not all based in Zillow. So they could have backed out. They could have done something with an independent third party and that they didn't record. It's also possible that they just kind of gave up on selling the home, but this can tell us some really interesting information about what's actually been going on with the history of the home here. So we can see in 2020 it was sold, so November 2020, this was just a couple months ago. Interesting, okay. For $250. I'm guessing they kind of did a little bit of a flip on this one, or some rehab work. Yeah, this must be a flip. I would love to see what this looked like beforehand. To go, you know, they went up 54% in price. Okay, well, let's do it. November 2020 for $250. Oops. And where we're at now is 385. And a bit above ask 3. Okay, so you're wanting to bid way below ask. I'm not sure what happens with that. I think it messes up this calculator. Yeah, I can't do negatives in here. So this is going to be mainly just for bid above ask type of calculations. So 385 going down to 320 won't necessarily work. But just for the sake of the example, let's take a look about if we did 8,000 over asking. So again, we can see, you know, this is rehab stuff going on here. Value to break even March 2021, right? So based on the appreciation data here, even $8,000 above asking, which seems like a lot. You know, appreciation should catch up here. And the way that we're seeing demand trends happening is 2021, it's looking pretty clear that I don't anticipate a correction happening in 2021. Mainly with how much demand is still increasing. Builders aren't able to keep up and the inventory is low. So I know it's frustrating, but I think it's helpful to realize that with appreciation and with low interest rates, that actually keeps homes a little bit more affordable, okay? I mentioned this on the last live stream, I believe, that overall, historically, we're leaning into a problem of affordability over a long-term horizon. However, on a short-term view, within the last 2 years, homes have actually become more affordable this year than they were last year. And that's primarily because of how low interest rates are. And I'm planning on making a video about that here soon, talking about how interest rates affect payment so much. And even though we're having, you know, some areas appreciating 10% in value, the decrease in rates by almost 2% on average, maybe not 2% fully, 1.5% to 2%, is actually making those homes more affordable with their monthly payment, even though they have a higher cost to them. So again, don't take this as me. I'm not pushing you into selling or into buying a home. If now's not the right time, now's not the right time. And there are some areas that are way overpriced, okay? And this calculator can't account for everything, right? It's just a calculator. It doesn't have intelligence like you have, and can understand a market like you have, but it's helpful to understand some of the nuances that go on when we purchase. Instead of feeling like the world's crashing and we don't have the power to make decisions, we can take a look at numbers and then evaluate what they look like for us. Okay, so keeping in mind appreciation, keeping in mind what low interest rates look like, purchasing now is not going to be the death of you, I promise. Okay, and so let me hop over to, you know, this calculator is not available for everybody. So the way that you can find some more info is if you go to zillow.com/home-values, and we can go ahead and put in some info here. Now keep in mind, I'm not the biggest fan of Zillow. I think they have some pretty shady data practices. Primarily, they just sell a lot of people's information, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And they also, try to monopolize markets to the point where they kind of almost ruin realtors and lenders' businesses by charging so much, kind of capitalizing on the market. But Zillow is accessible. They do have some good tools here. I just wouldn't put my information into Zillow. So even though I use Zillow here to look up some information because it's quick and easy, I wouldn't put don't put your contact information in here, because your information is just going to get sold. And you probably don't want repeated phone calls and emails and all that stuff. And if you do, give me your number and I'll just call you every day if that's what you if that's what you want. So I looked up Zillow. I looked up Dayton. Okay. So their home index is 75,000, right? So when people talk about there's no affordable homes in the US, come to Dayton. Dayton's not that bad. Like, I live in Dayton. It's a good time. We got some cool bars. We have some good restaurants. And Dayton has done a better job at crime here in the past couple of years. There are great cities that you can live in that are still not super crazy expensive. In Dayton proper, like urban Dayton, is probably not fair in this assessment because you go to Oakwood, and let's see what Oakwood is. Oakwood is like kind of the bougier part around Dayton. You're putting around 300,000. So you have some nicer neighborhoods coming in some of these areas here. But so let's take a look at Oakwood. We can see historic versus forecasted appreciation in here. So Oakwood home values have gone up 7.5% over the past year, and Zillow predicts they'll rise 10.3% in the next year. And this is pretty on par with what we're seeing. Most economists are forecasting 6% nationally as an average increase in appreciation over this upcoming year in 2021. Okay, so that's what we would expect on a national level, right, with all home markets. But your market might be a little bit different depending on what's going on, right? Because Oakwood, Ohio is going to be significantly different than San Francisco. There's a lot of different factors going on in there, right? Google placing where they're going to have their a new location is vastly going to change what's happening in a housing market. And Google just frankly is not going to come to Oakwood, Ohio. At least I don't expect. But it is cool that we can see, what happened with our current values versus kind of appreciation into the future here. Okay. So pretty significant. We're seeing this isn't tapering off, and at the same time it's not doing this crazy acceleration that it might feel like. A lot of the demand or the frustration that you might be feeling from the market is primarily from multiple offers, not necessarily homes skyrocketing in price. Okay. Let me check in here on some text. I think we already covered this. So why would you overbid? It's going to help your offer stand out in a seller's market. Okay. As much as we want to get a discount on a home, sometimes it's not feasible, right? And it comes down to, why are you purchasing? Are you purchasing because it's something that you want to do or something that you need to do? A lot of people are in the situation where they just have to purchase because it's a necessity. There's a family change, there's a job change, there's some need for relocation happening. I know some people who have needed to move out of their home because they have mold issues, or there's other things going on where it just becomes a necessity. Okay, so the whole goal of this exercise really is to help you understand that if you do need to purchase now, it's okay. I know it's so easy to fall into the trap of hearing what everyone's saying about how the sky is falling, there's going to be a crash and all this stuff, and you're going to lose a ton of money. It's just really, there's not data there to support it. And in fact, when we take a look at these bid over ask things, when we take a look at how much lower interest rates can change monthly prices and how much they can help us actually afford that home, then it helps us put us more into a more comfortable position where we aren't purchasing already with a feeling of defeat, right? That's never going to set us up for success if we're walking into the process feeling defeated, just because we know we have to make this move, okay? And overbidding can also help you get a better chance of asking for closing cost help from a seller. So this all depends on your market too, but here in our local market, people are still getting seller concessions from a seller. This is where you can ask the seller for help for your closing costs. They can contribute a portion of the purchase price towards your closing costs. And that can help you out lower the cash that you need to close on your home. That's still going on here in this market. Competitive markets, San Francisco, Nashville, probably going to have a really hard time doing that. Not impossible, but a really hard time. So overbidding can also help you kind of wrap in closing costs in a way, right? So if we have a $100,000 house, but we need $3,000 in seller concessions, and the seller doesn't want to budge, well, we can offer $103,000 and then ask for $3,000 in seller concessions. The seller gets the same amount of money, and we get $3,000, and it kind of gets financed into the loan amount there. Okay, so what we want to watch for short appraisals. Okay, we have to make sure we're not overbidding so much that we get a short appraisal, because trust me, nobody wants that. Some people think that a short appraisal is good. It's not fun. Nobody wants a short appraisal. In theory, it'd be nice. If you bid on a home, it's $300,000, it appraises for $290,000, and you think, oh great, I get to purchase it for $290,000. That's just not the case. The seller can walk away if they want to, and that is not fun. Okay, it just creates a world of headache and can kill deals really quickly. So a short appraisal, even for a buyer, sometimes isn't great news, because sellers rarely want to budge, and if they do, they're going to throw a tantrum like nothing else. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been yelled at by listing agents because an appraisal came in short. I'm thinking, how long have you been doing this? I don't do appraisals. I can't control an appraisal. But they want to take their frustration out on somebody else. So it's for sure dramatic. And then what we also want to watch for is the length of the time that we're in a home. If you know you're going to be in an area for only probably under 3 years, then it might not be good to overbid, okay? If you're going to be in there for a longer period of time, you have more flexibility to overbid for that home, because the way appreciation is going to work is that's going to help over time even out that overbidding. But the shorter time that we're in the home, the more risk we take on. Now, most people are going to be in a home for about 10 years, and I know it's hard to kind of forecast how long you're going to actually be there. But in general, if you're going to move in 2 years, it might be a better idea to rent, okay? Depending on what kind of costs you're going to take on or what kind of overbidding you have to do to be able to purchase a home, okay? So how are we doing? Does this make sense? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Makes sense? Doesn't make sense? Did I lose you? Is anybody falling asleep? I'm going to switch back here to this main camera, and then we are going to jump into a question and answer here in just a sec. James says, thumbs up, Angela. Angelica, thumbs up. Wonderful, makes perfect sense. Cool. Wonderful. I'm glad to hear this is making sense, and I'm not just making things up, texting or saying nonsense. Wonderful. Henry said, good explanation. Wonderful. One bright light makes sense. Cool. So we're going to jump into a question and answer. All right. So again, what you can do is, what size is this? You can text #live to this phone number. This is my phone number here. It's going to come in to my cell number. So it's not actually my personal cell. It's my business number. So it does a couple of cool things. When you text #live, it's going to put you on a live notification list. It's also going to put you in a group here where you can text in questions, and I'm going to give those priority over here. And you can also ask questions too, okay? So it's kind of a mix of it does some auto replies, and then it also is me, okay? So if you ask questions, I'll be able to reply in here, all right? So let's kind of go through some questions here, and then I'll take maybe the next hour to go through here. So Sam asked, is prepaid interest a part of closing costs? Yes, so prepaid interest is counted inside your closing costs. It's going to be included on every single loan. It's the interest you pay from the time you close on your loan till the first payment is due. Noah, you asked, are sellers expecting buyers to come in over asking? Um, Not necessarily. I think sellers are going to tend to list at what they expect. Primarily, home selling doesn't function in the same way that an auction would. In an auction, you're typically seeing somebody, think of like an eBay auction. You're going to kind of list low to get attention and get more sales. But primarily, if you're listing something on eBay, you expect it to sell for more than what you list it for. However, with home selling, in an ideal world, a seller lists a home for sale, and if they get an offer that comes in that they like, then they're going to go with that offer, right? They're not always sitting there entertaining multiple offers just for the sake of it. Primarily, what they want to do is they want to find this blend of course, they want to get a good price for their home, but they also want it to close, right? They want to make sure it's with a good lender who's going to actually close the loan. They want to make sure that it's going to close in a reasonable time frame, that there's going to be other terms that are acceptable to them. So really, I would expect what a home seller lists the home for is kind of the main number that they have in their head. If they can get more, great. But a lot of times, sellers are willing to go for whatever the list price was, if it has more favorable terms, even than a higher price that somebody offers in. Brianna texted in. You said or asked, do mortgage companies always run credit again right before a house is sold, if it was recently ran 40 days ago? So, like, if you're purchasing a home, your credit's going to be run at the beginning. It's going to be hard pull, so they're going to look at your credit score and everything inside of it. And then normally, right before you close on that home, they're going to do a soft credit pull. And normally, they're not even going to see a new score. Okay, it's actually called a refresh report. And what a refresh report does is it's just refreshing some of the credit accounts in there on the credit report. So again, most of the time they're not even gonna see a new score happening. They're just going to see, okay, did you open any new credit? Did you put $10,000 extra on a credit card? Those kinds of things are what they're looking out for. They just want to see if you included any more debt that they have to consider in your debt to income ratio. Because sometimes what people do is it'll be a couple days before closing and they go and buy a boat. Or they go and they max out credit cards with furniture or TVs or things like that. And that's when you have to delay the closing, make sure that debt can fit into the debt to income ratio. So that's mainly why they are doing a soft pull before you close. Donald, you said, I found a condo I'm interested in, but the property hasn't seen any offers yet. Is the price possibly too high? Yeah, it's possible. I'd be interested to know how you know that there aren't any offers yet. Maybe the realtors told you, because normally that information is not going to be available. There's offers that are being put in and not actually accepted there. So it's very possible the price is too high, or maybe that home just isn't desirable in that market specifically. Condos can sometimes be a little bit tricky to get sold because the condos are primarily for somebody who wants something very specific. Where a single family home with land, with a yard, normally appeals to a larger group of people than a condo would. So it's possible it's priced too high. If it's been on the market for quite some time, you probably have some more leverage to offer lower than what the list price is, because I'm sure the seller is might getting frustrated with the fact that it's not being sold at that point. Max, you asked, do you recommend getting multiple pre-approvals in a hot market to ensure offer deadlines are met? Or do you recommend only getting one pre-approval and then shopping around once my offer is accepted? I don't think you need to get multiple pre-approvals. In my mind, it's kind of pointless to go through to get a full pre-approval with multiple lenders, because you're not really getting any benefit from it. And it's not going to help you with deadlines either. Getting multiple pre-approvals, because only one lender can work on a loan at a time. You can't have multiple lenders working on a loan at a time, and then pick one that you want at the end. You can't really do that. So multiple pre-approvals isn't necessary. You just need one just to make sure that you are approved. And some lenders might ask like, hey, to give a quote, we need to do a full pre-approval. If that helps them feel more comfortable, that's completely fine, right? If you send them in documents and they end up pre-approving you, that's perfectly fine. There's no harm in getting multiple pre-approvals. But as a necessity, one pre-approval to make sure you're qualified, and then definitely shop around with multiple lenders to get different quotes, to be able to compare with that main pre-approval that you have. I got a conditional approval an hour ago. Does pending down payment assistance funding put you in that approval status? It's not that status that puts you in there. Conditional approval is when an underwriter takes a look at your loan file and they say, hey, we'll approve you for the loan as long as A, B, C, and D are met, right? These conditions are met, then we'll give you the full loan approval. So part of that conditional approval most likely is the down payment assistance funding coming through, to be able to help you get it clear to close on your loan, which is kind of the final approval status. Okay, so Noah, you asked, what do you mean by favorable terms? And that's when we were talking about a contract. So favorable terms would be like, a good example would be, what is the buyer purchasing with? Is it with cash? Is it with a conventional loan? Is it with an FHA loan? A seller is going to tend to prefer cash over financed loans, right? Because cash can close a lot quicker. There tends to be a lot less issues with cash. Conventional loans tend to be viewed better than an FHA loan, than a USDA loan, than a VA loan. Another term that a seller might be mindful of is, how are taxes handled? What does tax proration look like? That can change the terms. Also, are there inspection contingencies? What other, does the buyer have to sell a home before they can purchase this one? So there's all other things in the contract other than the purchase price that the seller's kind of looking at that affects them. It's not just that one number there. Okay, is it true that on conventional loans, cash deposits under 50% of my gross monthly income won't need to be sourced? It depends. So the guidelines say for cash deposits under 50% of your gross monthly income don't need to be sourced. Okay. However, it's completely up to an underwriter. They can ask for anything. If they see, I've seen underwriters flag like a $500 deposit. Now that buyer's income was on the lower side, but I've seen underwriters flag deposits that are unusual, even if it's under 50% of your monthly gross or your gross monthly income. And this is what's called an overlay. Lenders, there's baseline guidelines that conventional has, FHA has, USDA, VA, but lenders can tighten those up if they want to. They can never relax them, but they can make them more strict. And that's one of those things that happens. And the lenders rarely follow this 50% rule. Most of the time, they are going to make that a lot tighter, which can be really frustrating. So, just prepare to have some documentation for some of those larger deposits. It's really not too hard to kind of explain and document, where did I get this money from? Did it come in from a sale of something, or, where did I get this money? As long as you can kind of explain it and document it, and it's not just cash or it's not just a loan from something, you normally should be fine to be able to use that. What do you find are the most common things people are surprised to discover aren't a part of closing costs? So there's one big cost that's not a part of closing costs that are going to be on estimates that a lot of people don't keep in mind. And this is the inspection. Okay, so when you get a loan estimate, this should tell you most everything involved, right? A lender doing a good job is going to show you all of the costs involved on a loan estimate. However, the only thing not included on the loan estimate, I shouldn't say the only thing, but the main thing not included on the loan estimate is your inspection cost. And the reason why is an inspection is entirely optional. It's up to you. It's not something that's in connection with the loan or the purchase necessarily from a lender or realtor transaction required standpoint. So an inspection cost can run you $500, $700. Again, optional. I'd highly suggest you get one if you're not super smart when it comes to home issues like I am, right? Like, I should not be inspecting a home to see if it's has issues, right? If I have a plumbing, if I have a leak under my sink, I have to go look up a YouTube video on like, how do I fix this thing? So I shouldn't be the judge of what a home condition looks like. So I would always pay for an inspection. And so that's a big thing. Another thing too to consider are like your moving costs. So are you hiring a mover? And if so, movers can be extremely expensive. And even if you aren't, like, you're still paying for boxes, even just the gas to do your trips back and forth, even if it's a local move, are things that you need to keep in mind there, okay? That along with some of the other moving costs of you get into a home and you realize, oh, I actually need this type of furniture, or something broke and now I need this new thing. All these little odds and ends can really add up extremely quickly. And that's where you really need to have some of that extra money set aside for just these what if things, these random things that are going to pop up involved in just you moving. And this would happen, you'd run into some of these moving costs even if you're moving from like an apartment to another apartment, okay? You're just going to find things that you're probably going to have to spend money on, okay? So those are some things to keep in mind. They're all optional and up to you. You can spend as much or as little as you want, but what's on your loan estimate is not just the only numbers that you're going to see through the deal, unfortunately. Oh, I had a smoothie with like tons of I make these like green smoothies, which are like the only way that I have some sort of vegetables in my life. And I try to put in as like all the fruit, like, is it called pith? The white parts. But it gets like, I feel like it just destroys my throat. Maybe I don't react well to like lemon and orange acidity. I don't know. I don't think I have COVID. That's the hope. He said, not smart with home issues crew checking in. Yeah, I am, I'm not a handy person, but I'm willing to learn, okay? And I have the humility to recognize, like, I can't just walk around and fix things off the top of my head, but I can look up a YouTube video and follow steps. I can do that. I've fixed some leaky toilets every once in a while. Zach, you said the only attractive homes available in my area are new construction homes. 3 to 4 builders in my area have concerning reviews. I feel like I'm stuck waiting for available homes or risking it. So the first thing that I would maybe tackle in this question is the idea of attractive homes. It depends kind of where you're at in the home buying stage. A lot of times, especially like people my age, I see people my age purchase homes and they want a really cute house, right? They want to get a nice Pinterest house. They want to put it on Instagram and show everyone, look at this home. Look how cute it is, right? And that's fine, but sometimes we also want to take a stepping stone approach to houses. Maybe the home that we purchase is kind of ugly, and we love it through its ugliness, and we let it gain appreciation, and then we sell it and use that money to purchase something that we do end up liking. So maybe we delay gratification a little bit, and that's not for everybody. But talking about the reviews here, it'd be worth addressing those reviews, the concerns you have with the builders, right? You can say like, hey, I've been looking at using you. I like the homes that you create. However, the only thing that's holding me up a little bit is I do see there's a couple reviews here on Google. Could you shed a little bit of light into what went on here? And keep in mind that like sometimes good companies get bad reviews, right? Most of the time, the only time you're going to see reviews happen are when things go really good or when things go really, really bad. We rarely ever see the in between. And so sometimes reviews aren't the best picture for us. They give us an inclination of things or questions that we can ask, but they don't always give us the full thing that we need to, the full measure of judgment of a company. So a good example is like, no, I shouldn't share that story. um, I know of loan officers who have, uh, like gone off and yelled at clients, and people have left bad reviews for the company. And that's not an indication necessarily of the company itself. It's an indication of that specific loan officer. And that loan officer probably needs to go work on themselves and get fired and all that stuff. But it doesn't mean the company was bad. So I would address that with the builders and say, like, here are your bad reviews. Can you talk to me a little bit about this? And then you can kind of decide, kind of a gut feeling, are they being honest about this? Or is this a pattern that they've been creating that elicits the review? Angelica said, spill the tea. I can't spill the tea. I shouldn't. As fun as it would be, I shouldn't air out people's dirty laundry on a live like this. Donald, you said, I hope you bought Tesla call options. I don't know. I don't know if I can handle that amount of risk in my life. Didn't Tesla just cross, or no, not Tesla. Didn't Elon Musk, didn't he just cross Jeff Bezos in his net worth? Isn't that a thing that just happened recently? Or was that just Reddit doing its Reddit thing? Cassandra said, I do recommend shopping around lenders. I didn't, and while they aren't awful, they were not good and make the process much more stressful. Yeah, a not great lender can be a real pain. I can't tell you the amount of times I've heard from realtors and buyers and everything where they just cannot hear back from a loan officer. I do not understand how it's so difficult to reply to people. And don't get me wrong, like I have lots of texts and emails and everything that I need to get back to. But for the most part, I get back to people within 24 hours. If it's, when I was working with clients, I would get back to clients usually within 4 hours. And that would be like a full response, not just a quick text. It'd be like a full, email or a phone call or something like that. But yeah, a not great lender, not a lender who doesn't communicate well, is going to make the process stressful. I can't tell you the amount of realtors who will complain to me about, I've called this lender so many times and they've never answered. And this is over like multiple calls, multiple days. And like, I've had listing agents particularly who have yelled at me because I didn't get back to them within like 2 hours. I'm thinking, how am I hearing these stories of all these bad people, but I'm the one getting yelled at here? But I think it's just the nature of the beast here. Cassandra, you also said, not sure if it was mentioned earlier, but one thing had happened along with another coworker was the appraisal had to be expedited, which resulted into an extra $300. Yeah, sometimes there is what's called a rush fee that can be put on an appraisal to get that quicker. And sometimes it is needed depending on how quick or slow the appraiser is going. $300 is actually a bit on the cheap side. That from some of what I've heard, it depends on the market too and how stretched out appraisers are. Oh, you said the lender didn't tell you until the day of closing. Yeah, that's not great. They definitely should have given you a heads up on that before we would ever order a rush or a reinspection on an appraisal. That's something that I would get consent from a buyer first before we obviously the lender's not charging the appraisal cost, but they're the ones facilitating it. So they definitely should kind of give some heads up, or at least say like, hey, this is something that we need to do, but ultimately it's your decision. So that's a little rough. Oh, I'm just catching up this. K West, you said only 22 likes. Hit the like button. Cool. Well, I think we're up to 45 now. I was wondering why, because I kept seeing likes come in. I was wondering what did I do that everyone's keep pushing the like button. Well, I appreciate it. And if you haven't, feel free to. We do things gentle around here. We do it nice and slow. No smashing. Nobody wants to smash. Well, maybe some people want to smash. Okay, I'll stop talking. Um, What's your advice on using down payment money from stock investments? Might cashing out before closing be a bad look? Should this money be in my account months before talking to lenders? Okay, so yes, you can use money from stocks as a down payment. You do have to cash them out. You do have to liquidize them. You can only use liquid money for down payment. Now, it doesn't have to be liquidated immediately before. You can do a direct transfer from your stock portfolio to the title company. Now, just due to the nature of like investment accounts, you should probably do this about 2 days before closing, because it depends on like how you're executing your order with the brokerage account, along with like what their wiring policy is. Sometimes they might not let you might have it executed at a specific price, and then it's not going to execute exactly when you say, because if you want to sell, let's just say you all have the same stock. If you want to sell at $200, it's going to wait to execute at 200 unless you specify you're willing to just execute at any price. And then it's going to take a second for those to all sell, and then you might not be able to wire on the same day. So with all that in consideration, you either want to push it into your account a couple days before closing or to the title company's account a couple days before closing. It's not a bad look at all. Just tell your loan officer, hey, I have stocks here we're going to use for down payment, and then let them know that you're going to do that. And it doesn't have to be months before. So like technically it's going to create a large deposit, but you're going to have the brokerage account to be able to back that up. So you can show the lender the brokerage account with the withdrawal, along with your bank statement with the deposit, and then they can just match those two together. They can see 20,000 was taken out, 20,000 was added, same day, same transaction number, and then they match up, and you'll be perfectly good to go there. Seller contributed 9,000, which is more than our closing cost. If we don't amend the contract, where does the extra go? The first thing that I would do is look at purchasing points, right? You have extra money, so you could use that money to purchase more points to lower your interest rate. Another thing you could look at doing is a principal reduction, and this is where the extra money would go to pay off the principal of the loan. What makes more sense, instead of doing a principal reduction, is just to amend the contract for the difference. However, it depends how much you have. If you have maybe 2,000 or less extra, then I would go ahead and use that to pay points, lower your interest rate a little bit. It's going to give you some nice cost savings. Otherwise, I would go ahead and amend the contract, lower the purchase price by the extra amount, and reduce the seller concessions by that similar amount. Also, $9,000 in seller contributed closing costs is crazy. You must have a really great realtor to negotiate that for you, because most often it's not going to be $9,000 that a seller is going to give up. All right, so Sam, you said for self-employment, I've heard that if your bank statements don't perfectly match up to everything you earned, claimed on your taxes, you automatically need an audited P&L. Right now, because of COVID, pretty much every self-employed person is going to need a P&L. And it doesn't always need to be audited. It's going to depend on some different circumstances on if it's audited or not, and the loan type, and kind of goes into a lot of more complexity there depending on what the underwriter wants. But with COVID, at minimum, expect needing a profit and loss statement. Profit and loss statement is, think of it like a pay stub for a self-employed person. It's going to help the lender see year-to-date income. That's, normally a normal employee would have a pay stub that shows year-to-date pay, that a lender can see what somebody has earned over that calendar year. But for a self-employed person, they can only see 2 years of tax returns. So think about if you closed in this past December, a lender could see 2018 and 2019, but they have no clue what you made in 2020. So P&L is basically like a pay stub for a self-employed person. It's like how I like to think about it, to make it a little bit more clear why they need a P&L. They're not necessarily trying to get into your business. I mean, they are. But that's why they need that document there. Mike, you asked, so how far back do deposits have to be sourced? For instance, if it's a gift from a family member, obviously that's my source, but do they need to know where that came from? So really, any document you give to the lender is fair game, okay? So technically, a lender's gonna ask for the past 2 months of bank statements, okay? So it's January 7th. So if you were working on a loan right now, let's say the loan's going to close a couple weeks from now, the lender's going to want your past 2 months of bank statements. So they're going to want November's full bank statement and December's bank statement. All right. So keep in mind it's 2 full months, not 60 days necessarily. So we're at January 7th, and let's assume we close maybe January 20th. Even though that's 60 days prior, but they actually might want a transaction summary up to the date that you apply. And that's more than 60 days. So 2 full statements plus any intermediary transaction history. So even if you send in a document, let's say you sent in October statement, okay, and you gave it to the loan officer, not really thinking about it, or maybe you applied a month before and the loan officer has October statement, and the loan officer doesn't really catch it, and they send it into the underwriter. Now the underwriter has October, November, December. The underwriter can ask about large deposits if they see them in October. It's fair game. They saw the document and they're allowed to ask about it. It's not required that they do, right? But the lender specifically might have overlays that say, if we see a document, we're allowed to ask questions about it coming in. So the loan officer's job there is to kind of, at least in my mind, I don't want to show the underwriter more information than they need, because they're always going to ask questions about it. The loan officer's job is to work for you, and the underwriter's job is to work for the lender, and their job is to protect the lender's money, right? And obviously they want to help you get into a home too. They're not evil people. They're good people. They want to help you get in a home, but their job is to follow the rules to protect the lender's money. So all that to say, we want to show the underwriter as little as possible, but anything they see, they can ask about. But in most cases, they're only going to see the past 2 full months of bank statements to check for sources. So that is a good way around, like if you have cash, right? If you have cash under your mattress, number one, probably should put it in a safer place. But if you're wanting to purchase a home in a few months, you can take all that cash and deposit it into a bank account right now, and then purchase, let's say, in 3 to 4 months, and that cash will never have to be seasoned because an underwriter's never going to see that deposit. Okay, they never ask about beginning balances. They only ask about large deposits that happen. And when I specify beginning balances, I mean beginning month balances, not beginning of new account balances. If you open a new account with a large deposit, they will have to source that. Isn't the mortgage world fun? There's all these little intricacies and complicated things going on. Siddharth, you asked, do we have an all-time low inventory market here in Canada? So the same with the US. Average home prices are going higher. Should I bid and overpay for a new purchase or wait for a more favorable market in this new year? If you either rewind or wait or watch after this live is over, the beginning, I think 30-ish minutes of this video is kind of going through the ins and outs of that. If any repair is needed from the inspection, does that get renegotiated from the purchase agreement, or does the seller give money to make, or does does the seller give money or make the repairs? So it goes back to the kind of the negotiation stage. And this depends on your contract, like what your inspection contingency looks like. You may have written a contract where it says, hey, we're not going to negotiate for any repairs. Or you may have said, hey, within 14 days, we're going to ask for repairs, and then you have however many days to respond. So it all depends on the contract and how that's being set up. But for the most part, usually what's going to happen, if repairs do come up to be needed that you want to request, you can negotiate that in the purchase agreement. It's usually made in an amendment to the purchase agreement. And it's all up to you kind of how that's going to be handled. Most of the time, the seller is going to make repairs. Rarely do they give money. And most of the time, a seller can't just give cash over to a buyer. Not with financing. There's a lot of rules about that. Most of the time, a seller can't just like give you money. They can make reductions to the purchase price. They can increase closing cost credit, and they can even pay a contractor via an invoice. That's the easiest way to do it. But rarely can they just give money inside of a transaction without an underwriter not allowing that to happen. Vinny texted in, you said, I'll be closing next Friday. What are some of the things you find buyers most overlook prior to and immediately after the big day? Cool. Well, congratulations on your closing coming up. I think some things that people might overlook, a final walkthrough, I think is really important. If you don't have that scheduled, I think it'd be really important to do that. Your contract may or may not specify if that's a thing that you are or are not allowed to do. But a final walkthrough normally is going to be 24 to 48 hours before closing. You got to walk through, make sure the home is still in condition. If there are good condition, if there were repairs that you requested, that those have been made. I think that can be really important. Also, I think it's important to make sure that you have everything transferred correctly. And your realtor can help you with this. But you don't want to go through this whole process and then purchase a home and then realize your electric got shut off because things didn't get transferred correctly. Your water, your sewage, trash, electricity, internet, those things all need to be transferred properly over. Even things like your mail need to be redirected correctly. Also keep in mind that after you purchase, you're going to get tons of offers. Your information is now going to be made available in a public database that you just purchased a new home. And people are going to want to offer you things like nothing else. A good example is a lot of people get an offer for a copy of their deed in the mail. And there's a company who will charge like $100 to give you a copy of your deed. You're gonna get your deed anyway, and it's gonna be filed with a record online. Like you can go look up anybody's deed right now, right? You can look up a copy of it. But there's companies who will just they'll mail you and probably make it seem all official and everything. You have to pay $100 to get the copy of your deed. Nope, it's a scam. So just be careful of those things. Try to just shut everything down as much as you can. If you're still in email lists and call lists and everything like that, just tell people, hey, purchase the home, thanks so much, block the number and move on. So keep those things in mind, kind of keep your mental energy a little bit less exhausted as you go through it. Any rules of thumb for owners planning to rent a room in your house, more specifically how much to charge? I think Bigger Pockets has a tool that kind of will show you local rent data. It's probably not as granular as like how much you should charge for a room. It's probably gonna be more up to you. You could probably also maybe look on like if there's postings online that people have for just single rooms, and maybe see if they're close to what you're offering. That could be another way to do that. You all are bold. I don't think I would ever rent a room to somebody. I like my space. I do not want somebody that I don't know living there with me. Oh man, I think I'm really behind on these comments. I'm just now seeing people comment about about Elon. So he went to number one. Is Elon the richest person in the world now? Yeah, okay, I guess he's the richest man on earth. That's nuts. That dude works like nothing else. Didn't he open PayPal, Tesla, obviously. He has the Boring Company. He has the solar company. What else? He has SpaceX. The dude's got so much going on. It's crazy. I don't know how he maintains any bit of sanity. Well, he might be insane, but I don't know how he does all of that stuff. Okay, what weight would you give to lender recommendations from a realtor as opposed to Google results? For the most part, a lender recommendation from a realtor, I think, is going to be a really strong recommendation. It's going to be really good for your realtor and lender to work together. If everything goes smoothly, then they don't really need to have a good relationship, right? It's not that big of a deal. But when things go poorly, it's great for them to have a good working relationship because those are the two people who are going to help collaborate to help solve the issues that you run into. If you run into issues on a deal, which a lot of deals have issues, there's just random things happen because of how complex the whole housing world can be. And so those are the people who are going to help you solve that problem. If they don't have an established relationship working together, then that's kind of rough. And a realtor has probably worked with several different lenders. If they're recommending one, that's usually a good sign that that lender is going to do things correctly and help you close. Because the realtor wants things to close, right? They want to get paid. So they're most likely going to recommend a lender who's going to help that happen, right? A good example is like my brother's a realtor and he was venting to me today about how he has a lender working with one of his buyers and the lender will just not respond to him, which I think is crazy. I don't know how you operate a business like that, and he's been frustrated because he wanted his buyer to work with one of our loan officers here because he knows that he can walk in the office and talk to everyone here as opposed to a lender who's just not going to answer calls, which is just super frustrating. And he was running into issues. They're supposed to be closing tomorrow, and they still have issues with their loan. It's like the people that you're working with, your realtor and your lender, are there to help you with the issues that you're running into. If they're not going to work together, if they're not going to be responsive, then it's just going to add so much headache, especially because there are things that you can't directly work on yourself. So I think a realtor recommending a lender is going to be a good option for you. Ooh, Cassandra brought up a really good point. Another cost was getting out of my lease. Due to COVID, a lot of people are moving out, so they did not let me out of my lease, and it ended up being slightly cheaper to pay the fee, but another cost. That's a really good point. The timing of a lease can be super frustrating. Some landlords would be more, what's the right word? Easier to work with than others. But yeah, if you have to pay out to get a lease, that can be super frustrating. If you have your pre-approval letter already, will not having turned in all documents into your lender prevent you from closing on an offer? 100%. So pre-approval means pre-approval is just a lender's willingness to give you a loan. It does not mean that they're going to give you a loan. And a pre-approval will say that, like on the pre-approval letter, it should say something about all the conditions that need to be met for that loan approval to go through. If you don't send them the documents for you to close on your loan, then the loan's not going to close. They don't. There's no obligation with a pre-approval letter. And there's no legal recourse or anything like that. There's no guarantee that happens with a pre-approval that they'll give you money if you don't follow through with everything that they need of you. Can I print off a P&L from QuickBooks, profit and loss statement from QuickBooks, or does my CPL need to provide to lender? It depends on what they want. If they want an audited one, then it'll need to be from your CPL. and signed by them. Most of the time, you can just print off a P&L from QuickBooks and sign it yourself. If they don't need a fully audited one, which most of the time they don't need an audited one. Normally they'll want signed P&L and bank statements. With COVID, lenders have been asking for the past 3 months of bank statements, along with a full year-to-date P&L. You know, and a P&L doesn't have to be super formal with QuickBooks. That's way more formal than they'll require. I mean, it's going to be easier for them to read, I imagine, from QuickBooks. I've done P&Ls that are on like an Excel spreadsheet where it's not even like, it's literally just, you know, I'll talk with the self-employed person and they'll tell me, I'll say like, all right, your expenses for January, I type those in and literally just type it in on like a Word document or Excel spreadsheet. As long as it's accurate, it's going to work. They don't need anything super formal. Again, unless they want it audited. If you're unemployed due to pandemic, how long do I need to work in order to qualify for a mortgage? If you're going back to the same job, same line of work, most lenders are allowing you to do 1 to 2 pay stubs, so 14 to 30 days back at the job. How many times do you check with the underwriters? So typically a loan officer doesn't check with an underwriter. Normally what ends up happening is a loan officer submits a package. I'll explain that in just a second, but they'll submit a package and then they hear back from the underwriter. So that's normally how the exchange goes, is the loan officer presents information and then hears a response from the underwriter. You know, the package that they submit, they're first going to submit an initial package. So the loan officer is going to send all your disclosure documentation along with, you know, your driver's license, your pay stubs, your W-2s, bank statements, all that stuff into one big loan package and submit that into an underwriter. And normally people in the mortgage world call this like a touch. How many touches does this loan take? And a touch is like how many times the back and forth happens. So there's the initial submission, and then the underwriter comes back with a conditional approval saying, we saw the information you sent, we need these other things, and then you have your approval. And then the loan officer goes to the buyer and says, the underwriter wants these additional things. They get the information from the buyer. They send it back to the underwriter. Okay, there's touch number 1. The underwriter comes back and says, that looks great. However, there's a large deposit on page 2 of the bank statement. We need clarification for that. And then there's also a tax lien from the seller, and the title company needs to clear that. So the loan officer goes to the buyer and says, hey, we need documentation for the large deposit. And then goes to the title company and says, hey, I need documentation for this tax lien being removed. Gathers them up, sends it back to the underwriter. Underwriter says, that all looks great, you're clear to close. So that was like a 3-touch loan. We had the initial, the first one, and then the clear to close. So that's pretty typical, that process, somewhere around 3 touches. But that's kind of how the flow tends to work with an underwriter. Loan officers aren't just kind of sitting in calling like, how's the loan going? Normally a loan officer is very on top of where your loan is at, whether it's being checked by the underwriter or not. Would this be considered an approved source? I take cash from my checking where my paycheck is deposited, and I deposit the cash into a savings account at a different bank. That's gonna be tough. I would say from now on, start doing a wire or a check. Cash is so difficult to track. I'm trying to think through. It's really going to depend on the underwriter. If it's I take $500 from here, and on the same day I deposit $500 here, and I can show history of me doing that, probably. An underwriter would probably let that go through. However, if it's I took $500 from here, and then maybe you went and you bought lunch, and then I deposited $480 over here, then that's where you're going to start running into some issues, especially if they're different days. So moving forward, at minimum, let's do a cashier's check to make that that transfer, or to do a wire transfer. That's going to be way easier for an underwriter to look at and actually prove. Cash gets really difficult. They want to see those one-for-one types of things. Yeah, and what I mean by a wire is like just kind of a transfer from bank to bank. It doesn't have to be like a full-on wire transfer through like an independent bank. Student loans were automatically enrolled for forbearance. Will lenders be concerned about this? Nope, not at all. Lenders know COVID's going on and things are happening. Your student loans are going to be treated as normal even if they're in forbearance. And Frank said, great content. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Do I have to sell before halt eviction? So anything with evictions are going to be a better question for an attorney. I can't give any advice on the eviction side, um, unfortunately. Yeah, so I would have talked with a local attorney there to help you kind of understand the nuances of some of those rules. Yeah, Angelica said I hated roommates in college. I lived with, was it five? I think I lived with five other guys in college. So we all shared a house. I mean, it was a large house. We each had like an individual room, but yeah, five guys sharing one kitchen, and for the majority, most of them not actually cleaning dishes was like that very quickly can lead to a frustrating living experience. Which do you think has to come first, lender or real estate agent? I think it's going to be best to talk with a lender first. You can do it at the same time, but at least get an idea if you're approved first before starting to work with a real estate agent. Can you view houses before getting the lending confirmation? Yes. In this market, probably not as easily. It depends on the realtor. Most realtors aren't going to show you homes unless you do have some sort of pre-qualification or pre-approval, because it's just too hot of a market for realtors to be working with people who don't have the proof that they can actually afford the house that they're looking at. Okay, just scrolling through here. Can people get a pre-approval without turning in all the documents? I thought all documents were needed up front, or they only needed to be turned in before closing. It really depends on the lender. So you have some lenders who will say, like a good example is Quicken Loans will give you, or Rocket Mortgage or whatever, will give you a pre-approval in 15 seconds or whatever, which is dumb. Like they'll give you a pre-approval without checking any of your documents, which is ridiculous. Other lenders, like, when I give somebody a pre-approval, I want all the documents. And the reason why is not to be a pain. It's because I know that if I can look at issues now, we can work on those, and I can give people accurate information and help them close on time. Versus, if I just see partial information, well, some other document could have something that's going to trip us up, and I don't want to catch that later when somebody's already under contract, and then they get mad at me saying, "Why didn't you know about this?" So I'd prefer working with a lender who wants most of my documentation up front. That way I know I'm getting a solid pre-approval based off of real information. Um, if you just tell your lender stuff, they can give you a pre-approval, but is it actually worth anything? And then documents do need to turn in before closing, but most of the time they need those documents really, really soon after you're under contract. Okay, so it's not just, my closing's in 3 weeks from now, so I'll send them in later. It doesn't work that way. The way with underwriting and getting approved and everything like that is those documents need to be in like 2 to 3 days after you're under contract, okay? And if your underwriter, or if your loan officer did a good pre-approval, they probably have a lot of your documents already. But when a lender asks for documents, you need to send them in as quickly as possible because they have to go. They get put into a waiting list, right? You're not the only person purchasing a home. Lenders right now are just crazy busy, especially with so many refinances happening and so many purchases happening. So your loan gets put into the bottom of a list for somebody to review, and you're going to be subject to being in that line. All right, everyone wants to be at the top of the line. There's not a fast pass. It's not Disney World, unfortunately, to get to the top. So you really want to get those documents in soon, not just say, "Oh, my closing's later, so I'll submit it." The way I've always tried to tell it to the clients is like, the sooner that you can get me documents, the sooner we can close on your loan. Okay, and every day that I don't get documents that I request is potentially a day later that we can't close. All right, so it's not hard to collect some of these documents. Some people act like it's the end of the world to get a bank statement. It takes 5 minutes to get a bank statement. I can either go online. If you don't do online, call your bank. Can you fax me a bank statement to this number? It's not that difficult. So get in those documents to your lender as soon as you can. I am so behind on these comments. If you're looking at 2 different areas that require 2 different realtors, is it frustrating for the same loan officer to work with both if needed during the process? No, it's not. Although it's pretty uncommon to work with 2 different realtors. Are the areas like significantly far apart from each other? Normally, as long as they're within like driving distance, if these areas are within driving distance, you'd only really need to work with one realtor. Unless you're more comfortable working with ones that are like super hyper specific. But as far as the lenders or loan officers side, it's not a pain at all. How often do underwriters skip conditional approval? Almost never. So in the only instance in which you would skip a conditional approval is if you went from initial submission to clear to close immediately. And that rarely ever happens. That's more common on refinances. For that to be the case, you kind of are running a little bit of some risky business going on, especially if it's a purchase. Because to do that, you need a full appraisal, you need full title, you need all documents perfectly in order, submitted all at one time. And the risk that you run there is like, it's easier to get a conditional approval based off of income and asset documents than get the appraisal. But if we're waiting all the way for the appraisal, we might be waiting 15 days before we get an answer, when we could have got an answer on our credit if it was approved with the underwriter, on day 4. So most of the time it doesn't happen, but it's a lot more common on refinances to get an immediate clear to close. Dinesh, is it a good idea to have an inspection of a new construction home, or is it just a waste of money? I personally would get an inspection because new homes, old homes, you're always going to have issues. A new home is still going to have issues, right? Homes are complex. They're going to have things wrong with them, and that's okay. I personally would want to know if there's an issue with something before I actually get title to it. I don't want to purchase something, even if it's new construction, and then find out, oh, there was a foundation issue or there's some other issue here. And maybe that might be covered under the builder's warranty. I just want to know about it before it becomes an actual issue that I need to spend money on. Should you overpay per house or overbid? If you replay the first 30 minutes of this video, it's kind of talking about that. How are you supposed to get a realtor to recommend a lender if you talk to the lender first? It just depends on who you talk with first. I think it's best to talk with a lender first, and then I would prefer getting a realtor recommendation from a lender. But some people talk to a realtor first, and then they need a lender recommendation. So the order isn't make or break. It's more ideal to talk with a lender first. Make sure you can afford the house, actually get the loan, and then talk with the realtor. But if you talk with the realtor first, that's gonna be okay too. Cassandra said, my friend just moved into a house and left the place dirty. Oh, that's gross. That's so gross. I feel like with COVID, it's made it especially strange. Like, you want to go through and like bleach everything, or let the home sit for a few days before you move in. Oh, Mike, you said just giving you a hard time. I figured. Just want to clarify. Oh, and you said, okay, so your markets were like an hour apart in different markets. Okay, so that makes sense. So you're looking at two different markets there. That makes sense to have different realtors. I'm sure they appreciate that and are glad that you're not having them drive an hour back and forth to just to see different homes. Do you see housing inventory actually increasing in spring? No, I don't. Just based off of the data that we're seeing now. And also, what's interesting is like birth rate data actually impacts housing inventory, right? Because we're talking about right now, we're at the stage where people in their prime home buying years are aligning with a birth spike that we had for that period of time. So I think it's like around the 33 years old range. So around that time, 33 years ago, we had like a birth spike. And so we're just now hitting on that trend. And that's why we're seeing a lot of more buyers in the market, because you might be thinking like, where are the buyers coming from? It's because you had new births coming in, and these people, this kind of small baby boom, are now entering into home buying world, into their kind of prime purchasing years for first time buyers. So based on that data, I don't see inventory increasing, and builders just frankly are not keeping up with the demand. So I don't see it increasing. And as far as what website you can check for like current lending rates, check out Google CFPB rate checker, and you can put in your scenario and it'll show you average rates around your area. Why was the property value different on the state taxes site versus the appraisal value? So the appraised value and the assessed value are entirely different things. The assessed value is only the value that you're going to be paying taxes on. So you have a tax rate for your home, and it's going to be based on the assessed value. So you want the assessed value of the property to be low, because the only thing it tells you is not the value of the home. It's just how much is the county charging you for taxes. The appraisal is actually the actual value of the home, the market value of the home assessed by an appraiser. Are one-bedroom lofts in the city good rental properties in the future? I plan on living in the unit for a few years before I rent out. Possibly, depends kind of on your market. I imagine one-bedroom lofts are probably good in maybe some growing downtown areas, maybe areas with maybe possibly like some college-focused towns. Really just depends a lot on that market there. I'm in contract and seller paid taxes on January of 2012? Is that what you meant? Or of 2020? Seller paid taxes on, I'm guessing you meant 21. So they paid taxes yesterday, but it was due on 12/1. The next payment is on 5/21. How much is going to escrow? I'm just going to roll over and pay the owner what she didn't use. Okay, so kind of the question you're asking here is like, how do taxes get handled? So your taxes normally you're gonna see around 3 to 4 months of taxes put into escrow. Now, whatever amount you put in, like taxes are always going to even out. It doesn't matter when the seller paid and all that stuff. It's always going to, the math is always going to add up to being your correct amount of property taxes in the escrow account for when taxes are coming due, no matter when the seller paid them and all that stuff. Tax proration is going to even that all out. For me to tell you exactly how much is in there, I would need to plug it into an escrow calculator because I'm not good with that in my head. Calendar dates mess me up. But long story short is you're not going to be overpaying. You won't be underpaying your taxes. It's all going to get even out with your tax proration. It's kind of what tax proration serves its purpose is you pay your escrow, right? You have to pay a certain amount into escrow based on the day that you close, along with a 2-month cushion, and then tax proration evens out any overage that the seller is responsible for the time that they were in the property. Oh, James brought up a good point. Made a mistake of talking to a realtor first because I just wanted to go to viewings. Made it stressful when I wanted to put in an offer and had little time to compare lenders. That can be that is the hard part about working with a realtor is sometimes realtors are more pushy than lenders are, right? Because a lender can only give you the loan. They can't actually do anything to help you purchase the house. Where realtors are like, you want to write an offer? And then it makes it really stressful because like all of a sudden you're thinking, sure, I'll write an offer. And then you're under contract. You're like, oh shoot, now I need to get things moving. So talking with a lender can sometimes allow you to have a little bit more, be a little more relaxed in the process. Let me get my numbers ready. Wait maybe a little bit of time, then I'll talk with a realtor. Yeah, James said millennials are getting into home buying years. Yes, they are, and we're definitely feeling the consequences of that. I think technically I'm Gen Z. I think I'm below millennials. I think I'm right on the edge, but I'm not fully in the millennial category. I think I'm in the TikTok generation, unfortunately. Oh, is that what we're going to be known for? I think we're going to be known for TikTok. And WWHVAC, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate that. I'm glad to help out. Yeah, you said I'm a sort of side hustle as a home appraiser. You can make bank doing that. It's crazy how like there's such a shortage of appraisers because the education requirement is so long to become an appraiser. Like longer than to be a realtor or a loan officer. It's nuts and that's creating appraisal costs to skyrocket. I've seen some people, not in my market, but in other markets, who are seeing appraisal costs be like $1,000, $2,000 for an appraisal. With long turn times, with like 2, 3, 4 week return times, just because there's a shortage of appraisals, and they're like getting so overwhelmed that they're like, well, I'll just charge, like, I literally have no time for this. If you want me to do it, I'll charge $2,000 and I'll give it to you in 3 weeks. Just because they can, which is ridiculous, and unfortunately buyers need the appraisals and have to make those payments for it. But any thoughts on Bitcoin? Here's my overall thought when it comes to money, or just like investing strategies. You can make a lot of money in Bitcoin. You can make a lot of money in stocks. You can make a lot of money in real estate. There's always going to be people who have the exception, and they make tons of money because they got into things at the right time. However, a lot of equities, Bitcoin, stocks, tend to be gambling. And I think we like to think that it's not. Like, of course, we can do things that make us have higher gambling bets, but it's gambling, right? We're taking a speculative guess on what's going to happen with something. And we can act like we have data and numbers behind it that may help us make better decisions. And sometimes they can statistically help us make a little bit better decisions. But at the end of the day, it's still gambling. We're guessing on what's going to happen with our money, much more so than if we invested somewhere else. So, and I don't think that's bad. Again, you can still make a ton of money. You can also lose a ton of money. But I like to think of money as like kind of a hierarchy of how you spend it. Think of it like a triangle. Is that a triangle? Here at the bottom, where I'm spending most of my money, is going to be on much more conservative things. This is where I'm going to spend my money to pay off the debt, where I'm going to keep my emergency fund. Then as I move up, this is where I'm going to start funding my retirement account. It's a little bit less money, right? I'm keeping a lot of my money in more conservative things as I go up the list. And maybe you could flip those around. Maybe I have more money in my retirement accounts than I do in my emergency savings. We don't have to kill the metaphor here. But as we go up is where we get more risky, and we spend less money going up in here. So maybe you have real estate, then stocks, then something more speculative and risky like Bitcoin. So I wouldn't do investing in Bitcoin until I had all of my foundational layers set aside. I'm paying off most of my debt. I don't think you should invest in Bitcoin if you have debt, because you're just investing in something really risky. Let's go pay off something that we already know is taking away money from us, instead of guessing at something that's going to increase. Do I have emergency funds set aside? Do I have a home that I'm living in that's generating appreciation and equity? Then I would look at investing in Bitcoin, and also be prepared to like weather the loss that you have. For instance, like if I have $1,000 invested in something, and let's say I lose 50%, just for the sake of the example. Okay, well now I'm down to $500. To get back just to my base level of what I invested, I now have to gain 100%. I don't think we realize that all the time when we're investing. It's not, it dipped 50% and it has to go up 50%. It dipped 50 and I have to go up 100, because the amount that we have actual leveraged has to work so much harder to get up to that initial amount. So long story short, just be prepared to lose the money that you have. But you could make a ton of money too. I would personally want to spend money on things to build the foundational levels first, before I go doing some of that speculative investment. And Donald saying Tesla again. How about, Donald, you invest in Tesla, and then any earnings you make, we'll spread it amongst everybody in the live chat. I think that's a fair deal. So let me know if you're on board, and we'll hold you to it. We'll keep you accountable for that. Jesse said, seller change locks before listing a vacant house. Would you be comfortable keeping them? I personally wouldn't. It's up to you more so, but I would want to change locks personally. I don't want somebody else to have the keys to my house. My loan officer just asked me, did I get a seller concession? What is that? And will I need one? Seller concession is when you ask the seller to pay a portion of your closing costs. And this is based as a percentage of the purchase price. So you could ask like the seller to give you 3% of the purchase price towards your closing costs. So on a $100,000 house, they give you $3,000 towards your closing costs. And this is negotiated in your purchase contract. So if you have a purchase contract and you don't have it already, then it's going to be difficult to get one. But if you're just at the pre-approval stage, then when you talk with the lender, you might be kind of estimating like, yeah, I think I'm going to get somewhere around 3%, and they can help factor that in. And then when you write an offer, you're going to have to ask that in your purchase contract. Carla asked in a text, what's the difference, if any, between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification? This is difficult because there's no like legal codified definition between the two of them. I shouldn't say that. Technically there is, but the language around it is so loose that like even the language legally around a pre-approval is like, here's kind of what it is, but if lenders don't follow it on a regular basis, then they don't have to consider it a pre-approval, which is a ridiculous rule. For most people, a pre-qualification tends to be a lot less work than a pre-approval. So for the most part, what a lot of people understand as a pre-qualification is you verbally gave information to a loan officer and they told you kind of what you could be qualified for. A pre-approval is more viewed as a lender took a look at your credit, they took a look at your income, all of your documents, and then they ran it through an underwriting software. So in theory, a pre-approval should be more strict. However, that language is not regulated. Lenders can do whatever they want. They can call things whatever they want. So for instance, Quicken Loans can do they can do an app and call it a pre-approval. Even though you didn't submit documents and no human reviewed it, and they give you a pre-approval. At the same time, as a broker, our company has taken the stance that we don't want to use the word pre-approval. We use the word pre-qualification. But when we do pre-qualifications, we do full credit checks, full underwriting, full documentation, and we do really intense checks to make sure somebody's actually approved. So really just kind of comes down to what the lender wants to call it. There's no codified thing. Our company has taken the stance that we call things pre-qualifications because we're a broker and not a lender. We work with lenders, but we aren't a lender, so we don't give out pre-approvals. But I've had times where we give a pre-qualification letter to a buyer and a listing agent's like, we want a pre-approval. And so I go on my Word document and I change the word qualification to approval. If that's what you want, cool. What you really want to know is like, did I check their documents and credit and everything like that? Yes, I did that. But sometimes they just want the letter to, I don't know, feel better about themselves. Listing agents are weird, I'll tell you. They're a strange bunch. Angelica said prorations are fun to try calculate. No, they're not. Prorations are the worst. I hate tax proration. I built a little Google calculator to calculate tax proration for me because I got so tired of doing it by hand. And it's not difficult. It's more just annoying. It's how I don't want to be spending my time. Oh, and Mike said he got some good return from Bitcoin. I'm telling you, anybody who's getting return in this chat, what we're gonna do is we're gonna spread it amongst the chat. So if that's what you want to do, then Mike, let's show us the bank account. We're gonna spread around the goods, and then everybody's gonna have some Bitcoin. I think that sounds like a fair trade-off. Maybe not. Angelica, if you send me a text, and I'll share that tax proration calculator with you if you'd like. It's really easy. It's just so nice to be able to type in some numbers and it give you something instead. Oh, Donald, you said the Tesla calls are your down payment retirement money. Dang it. Well, we want some down payment retirement money. I think you're just being greedy with your money if you're not willing to give it to us. Tyler, you said you're getting tons of love over on Javier's channel. Cool. Javier is an awesome guy. Love the guy. We've talked on the phone. Have we talked on the phone? I think only once, but we've texted quite a bit. Fantastic guy. I'm a big fan of him. So if you don't know Javier Vidania's channel, you should definitely check him out, which you probably do. I imagine a lot of people on here are familiar with Javier. He has some great videos. Yeah, Mike said a good recommendation. Never invest in cryptocurrency, what you cannot afford to lose all of. It's just slightly better than playing the lottery. Yeah. What's PMI like on a $225,000 loan? FHA 3.5% down. So technically, and this is just me nitpicking, mortgage insurance on FHA is called mortgage insurance premium. And here you go. I'll show you how to calculate this. It's not too hateful. Let me open up an Excel document. Excuse me. You don't need an Excel document, but it's just easier to for you to track my math as we go through this. Screen. Put my face over here. I'll probably need to zoom into this. What? Why does it not zoom into this? There we go. Can you see that okay? Okay. Yeah, let me know if you can see that okay. So you said, let's see, we'll do loan. And again, you don't need a Google or a Excel spreadsheet to do this. I just want to help you see my math here a little bit easier. And let me zoom in just a touch more. There we go. So our loan's $225. Since this is FHA, it's actually going to have an upfront mortgage insurance premium that's going to be 1.75%. Okay, so we're just converting that to a decimal here. So our total loan is actually this plus times 1 plus this. So this is our actual total loan amount with this amount financed in here, because the actual amount that you're funding into this loan for your upfront mortgage insurance cost is $39.37, and we added that in here. So our total loan amount is this. The mortgage insurance premium is 0.85%, so we'll do 0.0085. And then what we need to do is convert this to a yearly amount. So we'll do yearly mortgage insurance premium, and all we're going to do is take our total loan times the premium amounts. So we pay this yearly, and then to convert this to monthly, we'll just take this, this divided by 12. So here you go. Monthly mortgage insurance premium, right? We could do this with any loan. We could say 100,000 changes to $72 a month. 300,000 changes to $216. So kind of simple breakdown here of what your mortgage insurance cost is going to look like. Super exciting. But that was probably easier than you seeing me just kind of enter a bunch of numbers into a calculator and it not make too much sense. And Angela, I just saw your text about the prorations calculator. I'll send that to you in just a bit, I think after we get off this this chat. Yeah, mortgage insurance sucks. It does, it really does suck. Cool, well we have hit the 2-hour mark, and I think that's kind of my time to head on out of here. Well, cool, so I'm gonna head on out, but thank you all for being here. You can always text this number, which I can never, it's always backwards to me. You can text this number, you can ask me a question. It shows, this number does kind of two things. It does some auto text, like with when you do like hashtag stuff, but then it also does come into me. I do see your questions. And so far I've been able to answer every question. Sometimes it takes me some time, right? I do get a few, between like texts and DMs and comments, I probably get over 100 a day. I try to reply to everyone, so in somewhat of a timely manner. But I want to be here to help as much as I possibly can. But give me a little bit of patience and some leeway as we go through there. So next live will be next Tuesday at 8 p.m. If you want to be notified when we do go live, again, you can text #live to this number. If you're already on the list, then you don't have to keep doing it, but it will give you kind of a confirmation when you do. So you all have a lovely night. Just a kind of a little bit of a quick unrelated word is, there's been a lot going on. 2020 has been a dumpster fire of a year. And John, you said you missed it. This replay is live, so you can go back and watch it. I do my best to try to help communicate how to purchase with calm, how to do things in a way that's going to make it less stressful and overwhelming, because home buying can be overwhelming already. So with everything that's been happening externally, your nervous system probably is like already a little bit on fire, okay? And then you add in all the home buying junk to that, and we're just kind of overloading ourselves with a lot of stress. So if you need to, like, take a break, okay? I know that you're doing tons of research, and I appreciate you here asking questions. But if you need to take some time to like get out of the housing world for a little bit and relax and allow your nervous system to calm down, then do that. It's really good to remember that like our mind is not just something that we can control. Like there's a bunch of wiring going from up here all the way down here and through arms and legs and everything, and these are like constantly firing with information back to our brain, and that's what can get us feeling a little bit overloaded. So take some time to relax. I do have a meditation that I just put out as a quick video, I think today. Yeah, I did that today, if you want to check that out. But take some time to relax. You deserve it, okay? You put in tons of work. The fact that 100 of you are still here is awesome, but allow yourself to breathe, to relax, and to kind of explore things outside of just stuff that you need to do. Okay? Well, you have a great night. I'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Talk to you soon.